Okay, I think we're going to get going, if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to the second CAQDAS webinar of 2021, organized by the CAQDAS Networking Project, which is based in the Department of Sociology at the University of Surrey in the United Kingdom. I'm Sarah Bullock, and I'm joined today by Christina Silva, my colleague, in hosting this event. So, before we get started, just to remind you that we have another 5 webinars scheduled between now and the end of March. So do keep an eye on those. And all of the webinars are recorded, and you'll be sent a link to the recording of this one. And all recordings are available on the given YouTube channel. If you're interested in contributing to our webinar series, we'd love to hear from you, so please do get in touch. We'd also like to draw your attention to the range of online training that's available, all of which is discounted at the moment to support researchers and students working from home at this difficult time. On to the topic of the day, topic modeling for social scientists. I'm delighted to introduce you to Dr. Eli Lieber, co-founder and CEO of Dedoose, who is based in Los Angeles, California, USA, from where he's joining us today. Before I hand over to him, let me tell you a little bit more about Eli. Eli gained his BA in psychology from California State University and completed his MA and PhD from the University of Illinois. He initially trained as a quantitative psychologist, and then Eli went on to collaborate with colleagues from a wide range of social science disciplines. And the results of this experience, his expertise in both quantitative and qualitative methods, have proven ideal for his present focus on integrated methods and research design. He's well known for developing creative strategies to maximize the use of technology in social science research, his contributions to the development of Dedoose being one primary outcome. Outside of this, Eli is known to keep himself busy with cycling, skiing, and soccer, where he can be found both on the field as a player or referee and also on the sidelines coaching. And he's on the board of trustees for Vistamar School and relaxes cooking and eating with his family and friends. So please do ask questions at any time during the session today in the chat area. We'll collate those and ask Eli your questions at relevant moments during the presentation or at the end. Can I also please ask you to keep your videos and your audio off, just to preserve the quality of the recording. Thanks so very much. And with no further ado, over to you, Eli. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, Christina. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And thank you for everybody for joining us and making time in your evening, perhaps if more of you are on that side of the pond. And good morning. And I've had my coffee and tea already this morning. So as Sarah mentioned, please do feel free. I've got my chat screen open just so I can try to track it. So if there's things that I can just grab and respond to during the session, I absolutely don't mind that you be posting those things. And yeah, to just provide a little bit more context, so you all know who I am and sort of where I'm coming from. I was originally trained as a quantitative psychologist, so I really love the numbers thing still. But I have embraced qualitative methods as a postdoc, and then really been in this space for all of my professional career, where I've been at UCLA for over 20 years, primarily responsible for running a resource laboratory. So really, I've become, as a professional, and which I don't know how many of us have followed that straight line. I certainly didn't with my vision for higher education. Really a methodologist and a consultant. And I really adore qualitative methods. My mentor at UCLA, Tom Weisner, is an anthropologist. So I really got a less formal but a thorough and expert guidance into the qualitative research space. And together, Tom and I, through the course of my work and my primary responsibility, working with a wide variety of researchers in different disciplines, we really have been grappling together for this space between qualitative and quantitative methods. How do we carry out our work efficiently what tools are available for us to do this work, and increasingly pushing out in this area we now call mixed methods. I mean, there really wasn't much of a name or associations for this back 20 years ago, but certainly it's a blossoming area now. And we looked at all the other challenges that we were facing, one being collaboration. So integrating all of these methods, commingling the different types of data, and doing this work collaboratively and efficiently as possible has really been sort of the driving mission behind how I've looked at my career. And I really enjoy it. I think, research is puzzle solving, and I love puzzles. So that's sort of the history of myself and sort of my academic journey. And I think hopefully that kind of sets you up for some context around what I'll be talking about today. So without further ado, let me jump in here. All right, so here's just an overview of what I'm planning to talk about today. And topic modeling is a rapidly growing area in computer science. So here's my plan for today, and I haven't overloaded things with slides. I really want to have as much of a dialogue as we possibly can, because this is an area of really active and rapid development. So everybody's really excited about big data. The challenges, obviously, of dealing with qualitative data are unique as compared to quant, because we can crunch big sets of numbers very easily. We've been able to do that for some time. But dealing with qualitative data is just an entirely different challenge, one that I've absolutely embraced. But there are unique aspects to the data that we're dealing with. And for a long time, everybody has wanted automation. When I first started talking about what we call REDA, research and evaluation data apps, or traditional qualitative data analysis software, of which many I've been trained on as part of my work at UCLA. When I first started to talk to people about this, especially being a quant guy, and if you were talking to quant people, everybody's looking for the button that makes something magical happen. And that's just not the case, right? So we'll talk a little bit about what we traditionally do with these tools, and current, past, and the future of our thinking about what kinds of technological supports can be integrated into this process. So here's our run through, and I should say, I'm very hopeful about this space. I think it's very exciting, and yet we're very sensitive to it. I sent myself a note in the middle of the night last night, dreaming about our talk today, and at some point I'll say something similar to this. But one of the really big challenges, and if there's nothing else that you walk away with thinking about today, please consider this thought. Using technology and qualitative data is really a controversial area. There are people very sensitive about the use of any technology at all. People have concerns about how technology can influence how you carry out your work, how you interact with these data. And yet there's a lot of potential in them. And so one of the questions that we ask about these advancing technologies, and particularly topic modeling, I think you'll see more about that because there's a whole lot going on under the hood when you come to topic modeling, is can we as a research community dealing traditionally with qualitative and mixed methods data, can we embrace this? And this is something that we're thinking about, and we are fully aware that it will not be a useful feature of any software if it isn't something that people feel that they can trust and are comfortable with. So I love numbers. I spent my graduate years really diving into that space and seeing what we can do with them. So I trust those calculations and those formulas. And yet when it comes to qualitative data, there's a different feeling. It's one where I think people need to feel that they're in control and there's some transparency, because without that, I as a researcher feel that I would have a difficult time using something if I didn't understand how it worked. When I taught stats in graduate school, I had people calculate the formulas by hand, and not, before they're using the one click to calculate a correlation coefficient, if you don't have a feel for what's really happening with those numbers, you aren't going to really fully understand them, and you might have trust issues. So when it comes to qualitative data, it's messy, it's complex, it's rich, and that's what is so wonderful about it. And so it really deserves a considerate and caring approach to how we deal with them. So now I'm going to go off into the world of mathematical formulas and all of that, but just know that going in, this is how I'm thinking and feeling about these tools, what we're trying to do at Dedoose, and why we think it'll be really valuable. All right, so webs of connections. This is what we really do with research and evaluation data apps and qualitative, traditional qual software, right? There isn't, while there are efforts and other features available to sort of automate certain steps, largely what we're doing is establishing a webs of connections, right? And in Dedoose, we talk about these different aspects of a database with the language of Dedoose. We have what we call descriptors. These are demographics, test scores, everything that we know about the sources of our qualitative data, right? So we can record that and analyze them in traditional quantitative ways, but we can bring these data into a project. Our media are our qualitative data, right? So we may have documents, images, video that we gather from different participants, okay? We can have multiple descriptor sets if we have nested studies. So these data are being collected through certain methods, and these data are being collected through certain methods, right? And then this is how we interact with them post-collection, right? Then what do? We go into our qualitative data in very traditional ways. We work to develop code systems, and we then go into our qualitative data, identify areas of text or clips on a stream or parts of an image that are informing our research question. And then we're going to tag what we call excerpts, these chunks of text or portions of our qualitative media, with any number of codes from our code system, right? So there's really nothing magical going on here. These are information management systems. The hard work, as I've come to appreciate it, aside from getting all of these data and wrangling them, because they aren't a sheet that you can Scantron, that ages me. You can't have automated ways of inputting these data into digital forms, because we have to then interact with them, right? And the hard work, the lifting that we bring as researchers and investigators is developing a good code system. That's hard work. And then figuring out how to use it. That's hard work too. But there's nothing magical, right? We're coming up with these codes ourselves. This code system will evolve as we see fit. And then we find data and we tag it. So when we're building these webs of connections, what these digital tools have been primarily designed to do is help manage all of it. So we can deal with much larger amounts of data, and then move through them very quickly as we're querying or running our analyses on these data. Okay, so these connections are things that they can often be automated in certain ways, but we're building relationships between them. And once that web has been developed, then we're ready to analyze our data, make our interpretations, and tell our stories. Okay, so this is primarily what we've been doing with these tools historically. All right, so artificial intelligence. Is there anything going on under the hood? In short, I don't think artificial intelligence is all that smart yet. It's fantastic what people are doing with computers, but I think we've got a long way to go in terms of what these tools can actually do for us in certain contexts. Certain contexts, these tools are running without any human interaction. That's not the case with qualitative data analysis. So we've been looking at this area for many years now, and there are certain tools that have been developed to provide support in these areas. One is a tool that we came across called MonkeyLearn, and MonkeyLearn is a classification system similar to we'll be talking about topic modeling and coding, right? We're trying to organize these data. We're engaging in a data reduction exercise. So Monkey Learn was plugged into Dedoose, and we took over 17,000 abstracts from American Public Health Association journals and crunched them. So we just ran this through. I mean, and it was a heavy lift for our servers, but in seconds we had our results. So what did we get? So Monkey Learn is designed to identify themes, to identify entities, and develop codes. We ended up with over 2,000 codes that represented 240 entities, which were locations, people, organizations, almost 2,000 keywords or themes that we might, however we want to refer to those, 4 sentiment codes. Of these 17,000 abstracts, nearly 28,000 excerpts were created. Again, we call excerpts these chunks of text in this case. The different language and different tools you may be familiar with, quotations, passages, whatever. And across those near 28,000 excerpts, there were over 70,000 code applied. It happened really fast. It was a mess, but it was pretty awesome. And you know, so I'm going to criticize this because one of the things that we've been concerned about from day one when we've looked at these tools is the introduction of error into a database, right? And we as investigators have to decide for ourselves what level of mess or inconsistency or error, I'm putting up my fingers in air quotes if you don't see my face very well, into our data. Depending on what the study is about, we may be comfortable with more error, and on certain circumstances, we may be comfortable with less, right? These are one of the decisions that we make as investigators. And when we were looking at some of these technologies long ago, these classification systems, even those that are built specifically for certain industries, like you know, hotel satisfaction, as an example, there are companies out there who built these models to process that information and then deliver results to you, you know, nearly instantly. And so there's a lot of attractiveness. Again, we all want to carve through these large amounts of data, but then the question arises as to how well do you want to do that? When we first looked at these technologies, our developers at Dedoose got really excited. They're like, Eli, we can do this really fast. Just cut us loose. And there was a sample data set on the website of this particular company. It took me 10 minutes to find some really concerning error and misleading results. It didn't take long. Natural language is just complicated. So going back to just the caveat here with Monkey Learn, you can tune these tools, right? You can say, all right, a code isn't valid unless it occurs more than a certain number of times. So we can tweak these models and how they approach new data in a lot of ways, right? Things like stop words, we're going to ignore stop words. So there's a lot going on in terms of how these algorithms are carving their way through a corpus of natural language with all of its beautiful complexity and messiness and vernacular and sarcasm. Natural language is just really complicated. So we were really excited about it. So don't get me wrong here. We saw how potentially valuable the technology was. So I was reading something a while ago about artificial intelligence, and then the author referred to something about that he referred to as, or she, as intelligence augmentation. So as opposed to artificial intelligence, which is, you know, a little scary, what if, and this was the frame, we can find ways of using technology to augment and support and strengthen our own intelligence, right? It really got me thinking about things another way, right? So as opposed to a pure robot, right, let's just go cyborg. And can we build better versions of Eli, right? More consistent, more persistent, more patient. I wish that was the case. So back in 2014, we started getting really excited about this. at a CAQDAS hosted meeting in Surrey. That was a pleasure of a trip. So thank you, CAQDAS, for hosting that many years ago. This was the second, I believe, of their gathering. There was a presentation by Nigel Fielding on CAQDAS and our digital future. And in that talk, he was referring to these technological supports for natural language processing. In that same year, as by chance, I was present at a presentation at a qualitative research conference in Illinois, the International Congress of Qualitative Inquiry, where I saw a presentation about the application of topic modeling in qualitative research. I'd never heard of topic modeling. Certainly, I never heard of an app when I first started to develop Dedoose as well. It's amazing how things change. So I was really excited about this because I'm a quant guy, and this is all underpinned or supported based on quantitative methods. These are mathematically based algorithms that are doing our jobs. And so, you know, how do we feel about that? Some places try to talk about this and you just are shown the door. Hopefully that's not the case today. And really this is just all about sort of considering what can be happening. So after this presentation by Chrysostomos, I went up to him and started asking about this because he presented it. This was a really qualitative leaning audience and conference. But being a math guy, I got this because it's like factor analysis for words, you know, in its simple form. So I got really excited because I understand how factor analysis works, and I'm thinking, wow, you can do this with words. I'm totally in. Not as rapid a exercise as we thought, but this was the beginning of our vision for what we could bring into Dedoose, and we are still at it. We're getting super close. We have some working prototypes, and yeah, when the dust settles over all of what we've needed to adjust to over the last year or so, and I can focus much more of my energy on this, I'm sure that we're going to see this through to a really promising end. So just as a really simple background, we want to process big data, right? This has been something that people have been after for a while. It's an overwhelming task, and so often we will limit some of the work that we do because it's largely manual, if we're not trusting of the existing tools. And so we're often also going to just limit ourselves to subsets of data, right? We'll try to grab representative samples and you know, that we can manage, and then we do that work, right? And so here's just a list of some of the problems that arise when we do our work this way. We have sampling bias, of course, because we don't know if we're pulling a representative sample of data out of this entire the pool of data. As we do this work as humans, there's always concerns about subjective bias being introduced, time intensity. We're not processing all of the data, and the model really isn't going to hang very well for future use, right? Because it's really built upon a specific data set, but only, even more so, a very small data set. You know, and so I guess at this point, what pops into my head to mention, is, of course, is that the more data you have, the better these tools are going to perform for you. And I'm just looking at the comments, and it was just a reminder that you can ask questions, or we'll save them for later. So we introduced topic modeling then, and this is a family of algorithms that are designed to classify natural language. They can process, as I mentioned, mountains of data in seconds, and then they're facilitating our work through machine learning. And of course, we're then addressing many of the potential weaknesses of the way that we currently may be carrying out our work. All right, so what is this stuff? And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty calculations and probability distributions across words and documents and all of the topic modeling language. So I invite you to dig into some of that literature. There's some really great stuff that I've been able to wrap my head around, and then there's the stuff that takes me back to, multivariate quant courses when I was in graduate school. So this is what is referred to out in our conversations as machine learning, natural language processing. We're text mining for hidden semantic structures. Doesn't sound like an interesting, intriguing investigation. Fundamentally, what are we doing? We're coding or we're classifying. So we're engaged in this traditional data reduction strategy, creating code systems and then organizing our qualitative data around these conceptual frameworks that we've developed, right? I started thinking about this also as we train our research teams, right? So what happens in an analog world where we're doing this work? We're sitting around at the table with our teams. We're training them up on a code system. We're testing for inter-rater reliability. When we're comfortable that our team is a tool we can employ and trust, we cut them loose, and then we divide and conquer all that qualitative data, right? And we step back as the primary investigators and have our tea and do our Zoom sessions, and then we come back and the data have all been coded, right? Now, humans are fallible, they get tired, they drift, and so there's that problem of having humans process our data. So potential of having computers do it is exciting, right? So, but again, I asked this question here, being computer driven, things happening under the hood that you're actually not seeing, can we embrace it as qualitative and mixed methods investigators? I hope that we can, and I hope that as we develop things in Dedoose, we're gonna leave you feeling it's worth a try. So we came across what is referred to as supervised topic modeling, right? So instead of just having monkey learn tear through this pile of data, what if we can start to evaluate some of what we see as humans? So we throw our 27,000 however many abstracts into the tool. Usually, actually, we want to work with samples of data, right? So we throw 1,000 of these abstracts into the black abyss of what topic modeling is doing, and it comes back and it delivers a result to us. So we can start to evaluate these things in the same way that we carry out our quantitative factor analysis exercise. We can request certain numbers of topics or factors. We can look at how well items hang together. There are metrics that give us a guide to look at how a particular item loads or doesn't load on particular factors or topics. So there's information there for us. And because it's qualitative data, we can look at, for top loading documents, which is what computer scientists refer to as the chunk of text, because they often are dealing with entire documents. A lot of what we're doing, at least in the Dedoose world, is dealing with excerpts, right? So we're going to use those words interchangeably today. We can look at, all right, so here's a 10-factor model, and I can look at each factor or each topic, I can look and see which are the words that are most frequent here, most common, most representative. I can look at the documents or the excerpts that are most representative of a particular topic. I can look for levels of consistency within each topic across this entire 10-topic model. I can try to understand what they are, what they mean, why these particular documents are hanging together, and why these words are most representative. Maybe name them in the same way that we do factor analysis. And I can just run another model. I can run a 20-topic model, or 15 or 40, and look to see across these same criteria, is this making sense to me at all? The beauty of supervised topic modeling is that we then, as humans, can look at this natural language and understand perhaps more than these algorithms are appreciating from a human perspective, and we can feed information back to the system. Okay, so we can take a topic that we are presented with by this arbitrary algorithm and say, you know what, looking at this content, this stuff hangs together, but there's really two major themes going on here. There's, if it's topic 1, there's an A and a B. What if I start to manually separate things? So split the topic and take top representative documents or excerpts that I see for topic 1A and topic 1B, and manually present that back to the algorithm. So I can split them and just kick it back to the algorithm. The algorithm can actually then learn from this information. So we can actually seed these models before we even run them, or actually interact and train them as we go. We can decide that 2 topics really are capturing the same stuff, right? In the same way that when we're coding data, and at least I get to see everybody's name. It's Dalton Gifford now, but it was Coach. So Coach is coding, and Katie's coding, and Michelle and Eli are coding, and we're kind of doing things freely, and then we get back together as a team and we say, hey, you've got code 1 and 2, and I've got 3 and 4, and we were after the same stuff. Let's merge those together. We can do that and feed that information back into a topic modeling algorithm. So in this iterative process, we can train the model, right? So this is where I think we can start to get a sense of control over the process. We get to see the results, and if we don't like them, they don't make sense to us, we can abandon it and take another approach. We can feed back and try to train this model up to a point, in the same way that we might train our research team, to a point where we're happy and understand the results that are coming out of this interaction with these data, right? So we can do this in an iterative way, look at our data, train the model again and again and again, till we've got a model with a sufficient number of topics or codes that are reliably and consistently capturing meanings as we understand them. And then we can turn that model loose on the other 30,000 abstracts. And then capitalize on the power of what those types of numbers can provide for us, and breadth and confidence. So this is really what we're envisioning. This is what we're building, and it's just really cool stuff. The transparency of it. Right now, what we're playing with is really ugly, so it is not ready for prime time and won't be for a little while, but over this process since 2014, there's been a lot of learning on our side. Not knowing what topic modeling is to what I know now is a little frightening. But we weren't going to implement anything in Dedoose until it was something that we understood. We saw the value in serving these research communities, and we understood and could deliver in a way that we think is going to be most useful for people. So this is just to take things a little further, but this is a great time to post any questions for me. But again, when we're talking about figuring out how to find our way to optimal, sufficiently interpretable models, we can right up front run a set of different models with varying numbers of topics. We have a number of quantitative metrics that can come out of these topic modeling machines and processing. So we can look at, again, things like topic coherence. And this is where we're, as humans, really making bringing our interpretation and knowledge of language and how we extract meanings from it to the process. And then we have all of these qualitative factors, and these are critical to us, right? This is all data reduction in the same way that we've done it in the analog way for decades. But this is the exciting possibility of what technology can bring to augment the tedious manual process that we're engaging in. And in this world where enormous amounts of qualitative data are available to us in ways that we couldn't have imagined 10 years ago. What do we do with them, right? How do we really treat them respectfully as qualitative data are deserving, and in a manageable form inform whatever our research, our investigation questions are. And so these are the important things that we want to look at from humans. And I think as a methodologist and somebody who, reads journal submissions, you want to understand the process of what people went through. And when we're looking at, well, here's my perspective on evaluating the quality of a qualitative research project. I want to understand, so if in a really simple form, right? Somebody investigated a particular question, they built a code system, applied it, and presented us with their findings and interpretations. I want to know, as a methodologist, what did they actually do, right? How much can I trust the instrument that was this research team, right? I mean, when we have scales, that's great. When we have qualitative data, our trustworthiness of the data, trusting of the data comes from a demonstration that methods, which is what we use as academics to evaluate the quality of work, what methods were employed, how were they employed well. If the answer is yes to that question, then then I'm comfortable looking at the results. And then we of course need to then consider not just the results of analyses, but interpretations of those analyses. So we want to look at all of that as a get to you in a second, Anne. I shouldn't do that. So when it's all said and done, do we have a result that we understand, that we can articulate to our readers, because this is our business, right? Producing reports and articles and books, but we want that information to be valuable, right? And in the academic world, we want to know that methods were employed that we understand, and that in fields of study we trust. So we want to look at all of these factors when we're looking at or making decisions about when we have a sufficient, clear, documentable model, which is akin, again, to our research team and the work that they do as humans to organize and classify data. And when if we can get there, and we can make these arguments and present them clearly to our consumers, then I think we've done our job. And if we can crunch through 20,000 abstracts in minutes, once we've spent the time to develop the model itself that we're comfortable with and we believe is informative, then so be it. I think that's awesome. I love technology. So aside from a recovering quantitative psychologist who embraces qualitative data, I'm a total data geek and I love technology. So it's fun to be in this space, and it's exciting times because computers are doing really cool things. So Anne is asking, is this new work for Dedoose to do, or will it be an entirely separate software application? That's a great question, Anne. It is work we've been actively involved in from programming side for a number of years. I played with the idea of showing you our prototype today, but I think it's potentially distracting to what I was hoping the goals of today's conversation would be about. I would love to give you a delivery date, but at this point I can't do that. I just don't know. It would be too speculative. I want to say within 6 months we'll be done, or at least ready to release the first version of this in through an interface that is something that meets our standards. How it gets integrated into Dedoose, we haven't figured out yet. It's a stand-aside thing in that it supports only one phase of what you do with your data in the world of Dedoose, right? So we're creating that web of connections that I described. We can do it manually, or we can do it through a topic modeling engine. And then you're going off and doing all kinds of other things. And I'll speak to that in just a second in what we do with the results. But then we could start analyzing data in ways that you've been able to do in Dedoose for some time. It's just this first big lift of classifying, organizing our qualitative data. Once we get there, then we think the Dedoose analytics, you're just off and running. So the other thing that comes into play here is, number one, I'm sorry, I'm a recovering quantitative psychologist turned business person. This has been really expensive. So as much as I love the mission of educating and research and all these noble causes, I still have a staff and an infrastructure that I'm responsible for continuing to run. So we're going to have to figure out how to integrate this into Dedoose fairly, where there's some fees associated with it. We also know that it may be that people aren't going to use it very often. I mean, it's really a one phase, right? And if you're dealing with a big project over a long period of time, and a topic modeling engine is of value to it, you might use it and then you're gone. You're not going to use it again ever or for another 5 years, right? So that's different than the way that we have built the business model around Dedoose. So we're still figuring that out. Long answer to a good question. A good question. So as I was alluding to, if we get there, right? I'll look at that more deeply in just a second, Stephen. We can then just go off and do our other types of analyses, right? So for any topic, we can look at a lot of things around it in the same way that we can when we've done this work manually. We can just look at the content, right? We need to be able to articulate what's being represented by these topics or codes. We can look at them in terms of frequencies. We can look at correlations in a big space. If we have a topic model that includes 20 topics, how do they correlate with each other, right? There's going to be a relationship between them in the same way that we have relationships between factors in a quantitative factor analysis model. We can look at crosstabs across different subgroups. So all of the things that we want to do with our data, that we are using a tool like Dedoose or in Vivo or these other tools to carry out this work, we're often running with that once we've processed all these data through the topic modeling engine. So Stephen is saying there are several free topic modeling programs available with varying degrees of ease of use. Okay, can Dedoose be used to prepare data for topic modeling programs? And that would be possible for people to try it out. Yeah, I mean, we've played with a lot of these programs out there, and it is an open space, which is really cool. It's a little overwhelming for me because I don't, haven't spent my career in this computer science space. There is a lot of stuff out there. And so the varying degrees of ease of use is a great point, and that's part of what I was speaking to earlier. For us to implement anything in Dedoose, we have a certain vision for how we want to develop these tools and present them through a user interface. Sorry, a little distracted by another comment. So yes, so we're looking for them, and so again, there's nothing magical about these algorithms. They're public domain. What will be unique in Dedoose or in any tool where features like this are implemented is the interface, and so not just how you're interacting with the algorithm, but what it is that you can actually accomplish, right? In a I'm not going to say an easy way necessarily, but in a transparent way. So so people are certainly free to run off and work with these things. Dedoose doesn't have the precursor tools as a stand aside for all of the tokenization and other things that need to happen with qualitative data prior to running them through one of these engines. There are some people working on that as an independent tool as well. So certainly in the end, we're gonna have to integrate all of this. And that's what we've been working so hard to do, is not just run the algorithm in an arbitrary, poor interface way, but bring a whole lot more of this supervision aspect to that process. Norman, hey Norman, computer science topic coherence is typically measured with metrics. well, the relationship between those metrics to perceived coherence has not been demonstrated. So before I even read the rest of your comment, yeah, there's some studies out there, and we've actually run one ourselves, where we're looking at precisely that. There are these metrics, so we can look at that topic coherence. So what does topic coherence mean in a quantitative realm as opposed to a human natural language interpretive form, right? We can use that word coherence in very different ways. And we need to bring those things together. I think what your comment speaks to, Norman, is that if we have these metrics available within the topic modeling engine, are they doing what it is that we want them to do as humans? Is the use of the word coherence aligned from both the qualitative and quantitative side? I think that needs to happen, or we need, yes, we need to demonstrate empirically that what is being presented to the user as a metric of coherence is what we might be doing in an analog way. We have run studies looking at our engine so far to date and found some actually remarkable alignment. So, but yes, I think the idea of empirically demonstrating the value of these features is something that we're definitely after. And your experience been optimizing metrics, created bad models. So yeah, I've kind of already spoken to this, Norman, and yeah, it's not as straightforward, I guess, as we might hope. And so I'm definitely hearing you say that, and I get it. That's why we've been taking so long to get to where we are. We're taking it seriously and trying to see things from all these different perspectives. And if what comes out of these models is bad, as you refer to, I don't know, bad can mean a lot of different things, but if it's not useful, it's not useful. Then there's no point in putting it to work, because this speaks to the trustworthiness of what you're doing and the usefulness. So why invest in anything where you cannot see the outcome bringing some value? Yeah. So and we think, as you say, that empirically demonstrating this effectiveness, value, coherence, whatever, will be an important part of how we deliver this to the community. Because back to what I said right at the beginning, right? To embrace this, I need control and transparency. And part of transparency is it's doing what I want it to do, right? If I can influence it, great. But if it's not doing what I want it to do, it's not a useful tool. All right, I think I'm just about done with my slides. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Ah, there you are. So right.
That's great,
Go ahead,
Eli.
Christina.
Hi, it's Christina here. Thanks so much. That was a really interesting presentation, and I just wanted to say that I particularly found it really interesting to hear a little bit about your journey with the topic of topic modeling, as well as your thoughts about the technicalities and how you're thinking of implementing it in Dedoose. So thanks a lot for that. Just to remind those of you here that you're more than welcome to post your questions in the chat, and we'll pass those over to Eli. I've got a couple of my own questions, and I think Sarah's got a geeky quantitative one as well, so I'll pass it over to her for that. But you used abstracts of articles as examples in your talk. And I was just wondering if you think there are types of qualitative data that are more suited methodologically to topic modeling and types which are less suited, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a complicated question, right? So the value of what we're going to get out of these tools is going to speak to the usefulness of it, right? How appropriate is a model for a particular set of data? One of the challenges that we recognize from the first day, right? These algorithms are going to be smarter to the extent that you can feed, enormous amounts of information to them that's relevant to whatever it is we want to use them for. And so I think that's sort of, Norman, and I really appreciate your comment and statement. I mean, I think this is the kinds of issues that we need to be grappling with. One of the problems that we have with, what I've, in my experience, is typical qualitative data studies is we have pretty small amounts of data, right? It's relatively thin. We have a tough enough time coding excerpts sometimes. So that would be very inappropriate. There are different algorithms that can be run. The one that we're primarily focused on right now is called the latent Dirichlet allocation, LDA. But there are others that, and I don't know enough about this to make any definitive statement here, but some are going to be better for some purposes than some others. We can also look to train models. So, one way of just training a model is to, send everything on Wikipedia through it, and let it, because the models are based on basically, if I get this right, the probabilities that particular words will occur together in a particular document as a distribution across all documents. So there's sort of two distributions that we're looking at. So it's, and then the coherence of a model then is the distribution of documents across topics. So the more, it's just the power of numbers. And so one of the things that, and again, these are very, very well pointed questions to the things that we're struggling with to try to figure out. And one thing I realized I neglected to mention explicitly here is, what is it that we can provide? So if you come to Dedoose or whatever we call this topic modeling feature and want to use it, and you've got a certain amount and type of data, can we give you or start you off with a model that has been partially trained, right, in the content area or the population? And so those are really good, important questions that I don't have clear answers to. But one of the other things that I want to mention is, one of the beauties of this is if you can train a model well, and this is what some of these industrial tools are out there trying to claim, is that you can train models that are specific to domains of research, hotel satisfaction, for example, and then you run all customer comments through it, but it's already been trained up to look for a particular set of patterns. I maybe have a classification system already built in that basically you're then just sort of tossing things into boxes that have already been defined. How we get there, I don't have a good answer for that. But I think the short answer is, there's going to be situations where it's appropriate for use, and there are going to be situations where it's absolutely not going to be appropriate. And so, in any, hopefully every developer is thinking about when you're releasing tools or features, you want the end user to understand that, right? It's very exciting to press a button and have something happen, right? But in some other research, one of the things that we found is it's dangerous, right? So as educators or researchers or advisors in our work as professional academics, you get young people who are really comfortable with technology and they're just off and running. They don't understand how it works, then I think it's dangerous. And the kinds of results and their interpretations, is often poor. So there's a tremendous amount of risk when people sort of willy-nilly happily use tools when they don't understand whether they're appropriate or not. They don't understand whatever the pre-existing conditions, precursors or the required things that we need to do beforehand, right?
That's right. That reminds me of one of the things that Sarah and I frequently say is that, just because something's possible in the technology that you're using doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. So there's that kind of balance between using tools exploratively to see what they may bring up for you, but then also using tools in the context of the needs of your particular analysis.
It's fitting the tool to, it's the, what do they say, is it the golden hammer? When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
I don't know that one, but
I think we need to be wise about the employment. And yeah, I sort of have a sort of, fleeting thought about use of tools, right? If you don't understand how a tool uses, you're not going to use it in an optimal way, right? So you can hand somebody a chainsaw and tell them it's designed to cut down trees. If they don't realize you need to start it, they might rub that chain against that tree, but they're not going to get anywhere, right? It's, if you really don't know how it works, you shouldn't be using it.
Sure.
Just want to glance at Stephen's comment.
Yeah, while you're having a look at those comments, we probably need to start winding up a little bit, Eli. But what we've done in the past is send you through the remaining questions on an email and ask you to reply to them via email, so we can send those out with the recording. Is that okay for you? So absolutely. I think I've got a couple more questions, and there are a couple more in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, and Stephen, your point is well taken. Yeah, this is precisely the feeding of models. What do we train them on, and how do we prepare them for the use for another researcher? That's it, or later research. Those are important questions.
Sure. Okay. Well, just in the interests of keeping to our time schedule, just like to thank you again, Eli, for a really fascinating and methodologically really important discussion. As I said, we will be making the recording available to everybody who registered for this session today, and we will be asking Eli just to make a few comments on the remaining questions that we haven't had time to get to today. So thank you again.
Before we cut off, Christina, is it possible to save the chat conversation as well?
Yeah, I will do that.
So so thank you to everybody for being here and your input. But so I'm here for however long you need. We've got 3 minutes on my clock, but any other questions that we can address now? Sure, let's go for it, and I'll be happy to review and respond to anything else that you can forward.
Excellent. So maybe you want to just look at the last couple of questions in the chat, if there's one there.
So Stephen had commented, I think it's worth pointing out that certain information is going to be more and less standardized, right? And so he's comparing legal text versus interviews. So, right, that's precisely the decisions about appropriateness that we need to make. And I think for those of us in the quantitative world, we have these same questions to answer before we employ different approaches, and that should be no different here. This is research, and we're after, useful, believable, trustworthy findings, and the use of methods and using them well is dear to my heart. I think that's that's the litmus test. And AutoMap tool, I will definitely have to check it out.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks again. Those of you still here, don't forget that you'll be able to look at other recordings of our webinars, as well as this one that we'll send you tomorrow probably. And we very much hope to welcome you at the remainder of our scheduled webinars over the next couple of months. And as I think Sarah said right at the beginning, if you are a user or a teacher of qualitative software, then we're really keen to hear from you if you'd like to present a webinar in this series, so do be in touch with that. So we will hang around here for a few minutes if there are any final remaining chats that need to be had, but otherwise, thank you very much, Eli, and everybody else.
Thank you, Christina, Sarah, and CAQDAS. This is, I think I blasted you as the CAQDAS network as our longtime BFF when we blasted. we love your mission and what you've done, and to be able to interact with Normand in a talk like this is an outcome of that. It's awesome.
Great. No, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Eli.
You're very welcome. Happy to have been here. And now I gotta go build this thing that I'm. We're at it.
Excellent.